In Sunan Abu Dawood 67, I heard that the people asked the Prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, water is brought for you from the water of Buddha. It is a well in which dead dogs, menstrual cloths, and excrement of people are thrown. The Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, replied, verily water is pure and is not defiled by anything. And finally, in the Sunan Ibn Majah 520, it says it was narrated that Jabir bin Abdullah said, we came to a pond in which there was a carcass of a donkey. So we refrained from using the water until the Messenger of Allah came to us and said, water is not made impure by anything. Then we drank from it and gave it to our animals to drink, and we carried some with us.
Let's go with what we would normally think of when we talk about hygiene. Sunan Abu Dawud, number 67. I heard that the people asked the Prophet of Allah, water is brought for you from the well of Buddha. It is a well in which dead dogs, menstrual cloths, and excrement of people are thrown. The Messenger of Allah replied, verily water is pure and is not defiled by anything. Notice what this says.
Yeah.
Water's brought to you. We're bringing this to you and your people, Muhammad.
Oh, wow, that's nasty, though.
And there's just one problem. The well where we're getting this is our garbage. Ooh. This is where we throw our garbage. This is where we throw our dead animals. This is where we throw used menstrual cloths. And this is where we dump our toilet buckets into. Yeah. And we're scooping up some water, so bring it to you so you can wash up and perform your ablutions. Any problem with that, Prophet of God? No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure. Fortunately, most Muslims do not take that seriously, right?
Praise
Fortunately,
God.
If you as a Muslim took this seriously, you are dead. You will die. But we won't go in that direction. Let's just and there's just one problem. The well where we're getting this is our garbage. Ooh. This is where we throw our garbage. This is where we throw our dead animals. This is where we throw used menstrual cloths. And this is where we dump our toilet buckets into. And we're scooping up some water, so bring it to you so you can wash up and perform your ablutions. Any problem with that, Prophet of God? No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure. No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure. No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure. No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure. No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure.
And actually, I told you yesterday that 200 liters is sort of the dividing point. So if you have more than 200 liters, it's considered abundant, kathir. And if you have less than 200 liters, it's considered small, qalil. Or if you have running water, it's also considered kathir. So greater than 200 liters or running water is kathir. And less than that, less than 200 liters is qalil. And of course, the only time when this comes into play, the only time when you need to divide water according to the amount, is when when an impurity gets mixed in it. So if you mix an impurity into little water, then even a single drop of impurity will make the entire water impure.
No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure.
So if you mix an impurity into little water, then even a single drop of impurity will make the entire water impure.
No, water's not made impure by anything. Nothing you can do will make water impure.
Whereas if you mix impurity into a larger body of water, greater than 200 liters, then only when one of the characteristics of the water is changed by that impurity will the water become impure. Whereas if you mix impurity into a larger body of water, greater than 200 liters, then only when one of the characteristics of the water is changed by that impurity will the water become impure.
Supper, or the Last Supper, the disciples obviously partook of wine. And Jesus said, I'm not going to drink it again until, I drink it new in my Father's kingdom.
So would that have been fermented wine or just grape juice as we have in community?
Well, right. And
that's the argument.
That's the argument some try to make. And I think it's really tragic that some try to stretch it so far because of their personal perspective on that. No, it was definitely fermented alcohol, but it may not have been as fermented as it may be now. A lot of times they used it to drink because back then the water, was real contaminated and wasn't like today.
Oh, and alcohol would kill the bugs in it.
Right, and kill the person too.
It's not just for washing up. Sunan ibn Majah number 520. It was narrated that Jabir ibn Abdullah said, "We came to a pond in which there was the carcass of a donkey. So we refrained from using the water until the messenger of Allah came." Notice, we refrained from using the water. Smart.
Yep.
Smart. Maybe we shouldn't drink this water with the dead donkey floating in it.
Ooh.
We refrained from using the water until the messenger of Allah came to us and said, "Water is not made pure by anything, made impure by anything." It's his rule, right? You can't do anything to make what you put dead animals in it, use menstrual cloths, garbage, you can urinate in it, you can use a bath, it doesn't matter. Water is not made impure by anything. Garbage, you can urinate in it, you can use a bath, it doesn't matter. So what did they do? What did the Muslims do? Then we drank from it and gave it to our animals to drink, and we carried some with us. So we put some in our little canteens, we drank some of it, we gave some of it to our animals. Dead donkey floating in it. And up, and up.
If you have the water that is greater than less than 200 liters is called qalil, minuscule, and water that is greater than 200 liters is called kathir, abundant. So let's take each of these and look at what happens when we add something impure. If the water is less than 200 liters, it's qalil, it's minuscule, then even a drop of najasa, should it enter that water, it renders the entire water impure. You don't need a change in color, you don't need a change in taste, and you don't need a change in smell. And actually the basis of this is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, إِذَا اسْتَيْقَظَ أَحَدَكُم مِّن مَنَامِهِ, when one of you wakes up from his sleep, فَلْيَغْسِلْ يَدَهُ ثَلَاثًا, he should wash his hands 3 times, قَبْلَ أَن يَدْخُلَهَا الْإِنَاءَ, before he enters his hands into the container of water, فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَدْرِي أَيْنَ بَاتَتْ يَدَهُ, because verily he does not know where his hands have slept. The Prophet ﷺ in a hadith is saying that if you sleep, he's saying this to the Sahaba, and you wake up, before you put your hand in the small bucket of water or the small container of water from which you will use to make wudu, before sticking your hand in that water, pour some of the water off and wash your hands first. Why? Because you don't know where your hands slept. You don't know what impurity might be on your hands. And actually the reason for this is because during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and up till this day actually, there are various ways by which you can purify yourself after using the washer. One is to use water, the other is to use stones or toilet paper alone, and the third is to use both. Now imagine that somebody used only stones to purify themselves. The molecules of urine, for example, if there's urine or even stool, those will remain on the body part because the toilet paper or the stone will only dry that area. It won't pick up every single molecule as water would wash it away. And that's permissible within the Sharia. So if somebody does that, and then they fall asleep, and then imagine that they sweat, so now their body has become moist, those molecules through that moisture can be transferred if their hand happens to touch an area where there might be some impurity. So here the Prophet ﷺ is advising the people, before taking this hand and putting it in the container from which you will derive water for your wudu, wash it first so that you don't drop that impurity in the water and render it impure. If the water is less than 200 liters, if it's minuscule, then even a single drop of impurity, if it gets into the water, renders the entire water impure. And so that's what this hadith is pointing out, and that's where the Sharia derives this principle. And let's take another mas'ala. Let's say that somebody goes to a lake. Now if you go before a lake and you want to perform wudu, if you think about it a bit, you might be disgusted. Why? Because in that lake there are animals dying. You can see dead animals floating on top of the lake. In that lake people are throwing tons of dirt. In that lake the sewage plants of the city dump all the stuff that comes from the toilet into the lake. So that water is being made full of najasa on a daily basis. Impurities are being spread constantly in that water, but because that water is kathir, it's abundant, and because none of those impurities do not overtake one of its characteristics, meaning color, taste, or smell, it is permissible to stand at a lake and make wudu. The Sharia overlooks the impurities in the face of abundance of water. And actually, if you think about this for just a few minutes, this is a very, very deep concept within our deen. You know, each of us has faults within ourselves. So think about your heart as an ocean. Each of us has errors and faults and impurities within ourselves. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His infinite mercy, due to the abundance of the iman in our heart, overlooks those impurities and allows us to continue living within this earth. That's enormous. In fact, the principle of water is highlighted in that in and of itself. Beyond that, you should realize that in the sea of iman, you have no right to criticize another person's faults. Those faults are so minute in the overall sea of iman that we have no right to criticize anyone else's faults. In the same way that we will not sit in front of a lake and comment on how many animals are dying, how many animals have gone to the bathroom in that lake, how much sewage is being dumped in that lake. In the same way we would not comment on that because of the abundance of water, in the exact similar manner, we should not comment on the faults of another Muslim due to the abundance of iman. Meaning those faults get drowned away. You're a human being, I'm a human being, we will all make mistakes. And just as Allah, in His mercy, allowed us to use the lake water to purify ourselves and overlooked its impurities, in the same way we hope that on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overlook the tons of impurity that we dump upon our heart because of the fact that we dump it into a sea of iman. That's the hope. Otherwise, what are we here for? Who's going to be free of sin tomorrow? Impossible. That's the only hope that we can have. Then on the Day of Judgment, when we bring a mountain of sins on our shoulder, and we beg Allah for forgiveness, we can only hope that Allah, just as He was so merciful as to overlook the impurities within the lake and allow us to use the water, in the same way He will be so merciful and overlook our impurities in the ocean of our iman. So take these principles of tahara and apply them deeply, because they are based on very, very essential aspects of our deen.